I should not have screamed in terror that fine day. Saw that purple wig and did not know what to say. It left me sort of startled and confused. Red lips and white makeup and those big old red shoes. But my daddy tore a knot in me for being so damn rude. He said, son, don't you know that clowns are people too? Clowns are people too. Big red shoes. Clowns are people too. Don't be rude. If you weren't a bit lucky, then this could easily be you. I met your mom when she was up on that old trapeze. What can I say, but hey, I had a thing for circus freaks. I started watching Bozo and warmed to the movie It. Killer Clowns from Outer Space to me was a big hit. Some people like McDonald's because of Mayor McCheese. But Ronald is my homeboy now, and Krusty and Pinky. Clowns are people too. Big red shoes. Clowns are people too. Don't be rude. If you weren't a bit lucky, then this could easily be you. I met your mom when she was up on that old trapeze. What can I say, but hey, I had a thing for circus freaks. Clowns are people too. Clowns are people too. Now I own some tiny horns and got me those red shoes. I don't know much, but know one thing that's true. If you don't know anything, just know that clowns are people too.
Welcome to Inside the Gamecocks, the show, part of the Chief Sports Network.
Mad Dog's upstate raised and reared up near the tater patch. He flirted with that upstate team, now bleeds garnet and black. It's been almost 2 decades since JC started Big Spur. He may live outside of Chicago, but he's all Spartanburg. It's the show, the Gamecock Show. ITG, Phil and JC, it's the show. It's fun and entertainment, but also information, things you cannot get on radio. It's the show. Gather around all you Gamecocks, it's the show. The show. Let's go. JC and Mad Dog Mully on the Gamecock Show.
Oh, welcome in everybody inside the Gamecocks The Show. I am Mad Dog Mullinax. He is JC Shurburtt. And grab your sandwich, whatever colorful wig you have on, and let's have a little fun here. Kick off the show here. We got an interesting one, kind of at least lined up theoretically, JC. So I'm ready to dive on in. How you doing?
Yeah, it's all great to be with you right here on Inside the Gamecocks The Show, built by the Barndo Co. and sponsored by many different fine companies. South Carolina. We'll get to those later. Pretty good talk I saw or read, listened to. I was trying to keep up with this plane crash in DC, Phil. I know that's a part of the country you and Mike Morgan are familiar with. You both live there, children.
Yes.
Probably know where that airport is exactly.
It
Thoughts and
is
prayers go
truly.
out to everybody.
Yeah. I just hate what's going on there. But yeah, like Mike was talking about, he's an anxious flyer. I am as well. But quite, I mean, Reagan National Airport to me is the most anxiety inducing airport that I've ever flown in or out of, just because of the airspace you got to travel and how it has to navigate coming in and out of there, all the traffic, in the air. So yeah, it just hate it for everybody that has lost their lives and their families, and our hearts just go out to them. But yeah, it's a tough situation. Always bad to see accidents and things like that.
I don't like that either. I am a member of the Nervous Flyer Club with guys, and I'm real funny about it. And I if I never get on a regional Canada or regional jet again, I'll be fine. I'm claustrophobic. Those planes are too small. Even when I was not fat, I did not like getting on those planes. They're just cramped, and nor did I like to get on the ones with the top wings. The last we had a crash,
Right.
those propeller ones that are the commuter. I guess I'm just not a big fan of like commuter airlines. Although when I fly here to Columbia, it's United Express most of the time out of O'Hare, but it's an Embraer jet. It's 2 and 2. It's kind of in between a regional jet and a 737. It's a good size plane. I could spread out and all that good stuff. I was claustrophobic, but I remember when I was a kid, and I don't remember exactly what year it was. So forgive me if you were a baby or just born when the Florida Air plane took off from Reagan and crashed to the Potomac when it was snowing and icing. They didn't de-ice their wings.
Mike was talking about that, how his dad
hit the bridge.
Yeah, was about 5 minutes away from being involved in that. Jeez.
It hit the bridge. So it was tragic. I read about it last night. Of course, there's all this information that comes in. Originally, it said there were some survivors, but there's not, and that's heartbreaking. And then it said, plane collides with helicopter. It's kind of like 9/11 originally. Kind of like when George interviewed President Bush about 9/11. He says his initial thought was small plane hit the World Trade Center. Right. You think about, because if you don't see the word commercial jet, you're like plane. Usually it's, because it happened in DC and Reagan's right there near the district. I mean, I thought that's why where the news was, but certainly very tragic situation. Curious to see what happened with all that. And in the Nana Sports chat box, Frederick was standing attention 12 minutes before we even got on. Always appreciate the good mornings from our friend Frederick. Craig says, morning, boys. Prayers to the family of those in the crash. Stephen, definitely prayers to all the victims and families. But yeah, that's just that shakes me every time there is one. I just I don't fly as much as I used to, but gonna probably get on in April. So shoo, buddy. Sometimes driving isn't so bad when you start, and driving statistically is dangerous, right?
Right. I mean,
obviously, but and it's not it's long and taxing. Going to an airport now is like going to a third world country or prison.
Right. Yeah.
or high school. That's what an airport is. It's like sending everybody to high school, except there's a bar and not enough seats, and the customer service is similar to the lunch ladies or the parking people in the parking lot.
That's right.
We're not cops. Yeah, my stepson got a parking ticket the other day. That's cool. I was like the king of that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, because at their school, even though we pay through the nose tax, pay that school district insane clown posse level money. It's insane what we pay them. They don't have enough parking juniors to go to park.
No.
So they're just on their own, right? And I'm like, wow. Maybe let's I don't know if they fund the 125 cheerleaders they roll out for every football game or not, but maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's where's that revenue going? That seems like a pretty
and
solid revenue stream.
Yeah. They have a big field too that has a berm that apparently some high school class in the 90s, that was their like senior gift, building a berm, which makes no sense. They use it for absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
right. It's just green, like green grass. It's not like this place is in some, in Chicago, it's crowded. It's a city school. No, it's a big campus, like most of your bigger 5A, 6A, 7A schools in South. Well, they're not 5 schools in South Carolina, just big normal high school campus. So they have this big field. They don't play sports on it. They don't have a field day on it. They don't have picnics on it. Nothing. It's just there. But it has a berm, and it was a gift. I'm like, build a freaking parking lot.
Right.
I mean, come on. Well, then we got to pay the paint guy up here. You got to pay 28 million people to do anything.
Oh, right.
So anyway, I'm sorry for talking for 12 minutes about plane crashes and parking lots and parking tickets, because I know that our first topic is near and dear to everyone. There's been a lot of discussion about NIL, Phil.
Yeah.
Speaking of ridiculous money. And I want to set the record straight, because there's just a lot of speculation out there. Various, not so much social media takes. I just don't think a lot of people understand exactly what's going on. And it came up with basketball. Basketball, when you're not winning, it facilitates questions about everything, even though some of the questions are completely bogus. But NIL is at the forefront of everybody's conscious, and everybody in the national media that doesn't understand it at all, talks about how all these grandiose, salaries and stuff like that, or how you're going to compete nowadays. Ohio State winning the national championship did not help that. Although their department's like, how many millions of dollars did they lose? And that, they couldn't spend it on NIL. What I guess happened was boosters diverted money to NIL and that's why they're short. I know they have like 100 sports too, but we talked about that today. So a lot of people don't, it's not well covered. You can't really you shouldn't put out numbers. That Ohio State should never have put that number out. Maybe it was intentional so they could fire Ryan Day if he didn't win it all. Mm-hmm. Maybe losing to Michigan hurts them that bad. Maybe it was intentional, but you shouldn't put that out, because then everybody just assumes everybody that's good is doing that, and they're not. Mm-hmm. And Ohio State, actually, even for Ohio State, which has plenty of money, they have pretty good, they have, I don't know, besides the money, they have a pretty good group of guys there that they recruited and had to retain. And it's not, what they did was that's not going to happen every year as far as budget goes. So what about South Carolina? Is my internet doing better now, Phil?
I don't know. You're a little choppy, it's a little, yeah. You look good and clear, so you can tell that the hardware fix is in, but something is off.
The audio is a little
connection. Off? Yeah. It's the audio kind of going in and out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you want to, we can take a little break here. If you want to try.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break, because this is it's important enough to where, and I yammer on other things. It's important enough. Let me take a break, restart the computer, bring us back with some morning announcements. Speaking of high school. And we'll be right back. By the way, before we get out of here, I want to remind you that Mike Morgan shops at Home Capital, and so does Jamie Bradford. And if I ever have a need for outdoor furniture, I will too. Check them out. Locations in South Carolina. Get on their website. They're the absolute best. Inside the Gamecocks show will roll on after this break, and after I can fix my connection, right here with Phil and the Mad Dog. JC and the Mad Dog.
We got started in 1979. Because we're a manufacturer, we're able to control our costs. That's why we like to manufacture as much of the product as we can, because in our factory stores we can offer a competitive edge over other people around the country. When people come into one of our Palm Casuals, it's like they're buying their car at Detroit. They're going right to the factory and buying their car.
30-day money-back guarantee. That's a big deal with us. I mean, we give 30 days to do anything. I mean, return it, change it, get a different color, get your money back.
When you pull into a store and it says Palm Casual, you know you're at a factory store.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case. Nice. So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth, and we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. You know, when I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more. Now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia, yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more. Welcome to Palm Casual Patio Furniture. Because we are the factory, Palm Casual has the ability to offer the highest quality outdoor furniture paired with world-class service. Since 1979, our factory showrooms have done our best to make the buying process as easy as possible for our customers. Our understanding of the many factors that go into your decision has helped us create our 30-day trial period that increases the level of comfort our customers feel during the shopping experience. Visit us in Somerville, Mount Pleasant, Myrtle Beach, and Bluffton, and online at palmcasual.com for our products and out-of-state locations. Go Gamecocks! Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does nationally recognized the Barndominium Company, where they are building dream homes in the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Their turnkey process can be custom designed and takes 6 months on average. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com, thebarndominiumco.com.
Welcome back in, everybody, inside the Gamecocks The Show. kicking things off here, hopefully with renewed internet connections and a fresh stream. A good solid stream, JC. Which is very
I hope
important
so.
as we age.
Yeah, I think nobody's here, so it's like nobody else is using the internet today.
Right.
I don't
Who
I don't
knows?
understand why. So all right, welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show. I want to remind everyone, and Phil has the link to this, talk to Chris from Nana's Porch for your Super Bowl party. Why are we calling it the big game?
Well,
radio does that. We can call it the Super Bowl, can't we?
that's right. I guess.
I'm
mean,
not
you know,
calling it the big game. Then kiss my
until
butt.
the Shield comes after us. Then I think we can call it whatever we want.
Roger Goodell. I mean, they're living in fantasy land. You can't let a radio show talk about It's the Super Bowl.
So you
The
could say
big
Super
game.
Bowl, yeah. So long as you're not trying to promote something.
I'm promoting myself, in my opinion.
That's right.
And my friend Chris and his delicious Pimento Cheese.
Yes, because it is delicious.
For your Super Bowl parties, he just got a fresh batch in. Phil's going to put that link in the Nana Sports chat box. It's also in the description of this YouTube video. Nana's Porch, the sponsor of our chat box, big Gamecock fans and delicious Pimento Cheese. But anyway, I want to get back to this NIL thing. So I'm going to dig in and stop all the Ohio State talk and stuff and kind of go straight to South Carolina. And Phil, like, here's what it is. And here is the state of here's what it is right now. Because man, I saw a headline on some show podcast somewhere that can Carolina compete in NIL in athletics? When the discussion really has been around basketball, athletics is very broad, right? I mean, that includes multiple programs that are winning. And so I think there's just some confusion out there. I mean, this information is not readily available. You can't pull up a database. That one guy, poor Brad got caught up in it because his website was like NCAA.-NIL. It was just he bought the URL. It was one person, and he estimated what they were spending in NIL. In other words, and that's where you get screwed because you assume schools like Georgia, when they're winning, are just putting out the cash, right? And you would be assuming wrong. And so it was a guesstimate, and some media members said, well, this is what the NIL thing is. And then on top of that, it was from 2022, and they said it was from the NCAA. So whoever that attorney, accountant, whoever that took the time to crunch those numbers and come up with his own thing. Congratulations for misrepresenting yourself and confusing fans even more because your methods were not sound. To quote Apocalypse Now.
Muddying the waters, right? Which is
Tell
absolutely
me that's correct. Are my methods sound?
My methods.
I don't see any method. Are you an assassin? Nevertheless, so so that confused people. So people don't know. So here's the situation with South Carolina, and I'm guilty of this too, and I apologize because I haven't been as specific as I could be. I can't get into specific numbers on what players are making. That's strategic. I don't even know all of them. If I did, I can't get into that. Fans use it. Some people that are crazy out there, like the people we talked about on X yesterday, they would use those numbers against your own players when they had a bad game or did something bad. And then that's going to add, then it's not going to be a cool place to play anymore. There's all sorts of reasons why, until that information has to be public, which it will be with Rev Share when you're dealing with state supported schools. It's all subject to the Freedom of Information Act and things like that. Until that information is public, it's not going to be. That said, I wasn't as specific as I could have been with a situation. There's also, you have to understand too, that when you're talking about NIL and seasons and budgets, recruiting's done in advance, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
It's done for South Carolina's recruiting now for the class of 2026 in football, and the year 2024 just ended. Right. I talk about the 2024 class a lot, and how a lot of those guys attended games during the 2022 season, and that helped them. It's all done in advance. It is for every sport. And then season-wise, you can't just like roll through in August. The season's about to start. All right, boys, here's how much money we got. Here's how we're dividing it up. That doesn't happen either. And so when I talk about the football programs in good shape, they're spending as much as anybody else in the SEC, having gathered that information from some other schools, at least within a couple $100,000 worth. I feel confident in saying, hey, the NIL situation in football has improved to the point where Carolina's very competitive with everybody. And when revenue share kicks in, they'll be competitive with everybody. They're spending just as much as their peer schools, right? And so I want everybody to know that this team that just finished 9-4 was in the playoff hunt, though, Phil.
Right. It'd be a completely different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
With one of those games going the other way, because then you're like, well, there is no question at that point. You made the first 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
You're in, significant stakes for postseason.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to be clear, though, that roster they put together, probably less than half of what they're going to have for 2025 and forward. It was. It had probably increased 50% over 2023, where you kind of had two big time amounts of money in that bunch. And then, a lot of guys got paid, but in football, it has gone up, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Namely, Ray Tanner kind of restructured some things behind the scenes. The state, and that was because of the state law that they passed. Clemson's been able to do the same thing. It's been a very productive thing, and football's always going to spend more. There's 85 guys, all that good stuff. And there's not like a big budget crunch. Carolina hasn't utilized all of the resources in NIL that's allotted for next year yet. Now, the vast majority of that has been allotted, but it's there's still some flexibility, and that's always a good thing because there's another portal window coming up. And South Carolina does not overpay. And when I say they don't overpay, and I want to be clear about this too, it's not that they couldn't, is that they won't. They're the staff and everybody involved, they're determining value and saying, we're not going to do it. And I'll tell you, I'll do a little aside, and I hate to do this, but I'll be quick. I was in the Jewel Osco yesterday. Nobody knows what that is unless you live in the Midwest. It's now part of Kroger, I think. It's a grocery store. And Phil, I'm rolling around, and I'm getting stuff for my chef salad. I'm actually proud of myself. Went to the gym. Went into the gym. Proud of myself. Going to make dinner. Stayed on my diet yesterday. Rolling around, pushing the cart at the Jewel Osco in New Lenox, Illinois, right next to the gym. And I got some things for the some chopped onions, and then I'm like, I got some sauerkraut at home. I'm doing keto. Some brats would really be good. So I go and roll up, and I see the Johnsonville brats, $7.50. I'm like, well, perhaps I'll get the generic brand. $7.50 for 5 brats.
There's no difference.
It comes out to $1.25 per brat. But man, I come from the era where, unless you buy it at a ballpark, you get a brat for $1, and that has a bun and some grilled onions and sauerkraut or whatever on it. That's just for the wieners. Because I got a great brat recipe.
Right. It is delicious. I can attest.
It is awesome. But
I had a moment like that with hot dogs too. I'm like,
yeah, dude. I mean,
hell is a pack of hot dogs.
And pork is supposed to be the cheapest. It is the cheapest meat now. I don't know. And so I went on. I was like, all right, fine. And so I'm going around. So I'm like, well, I got to go get my bag of romaine lettuce to make my salad tonight because I had a nice flank steak and some grilled mushrooms. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm trying to hustle, guys. I'm trying to stay away from the beef sandwiches and stuff like that for the first time in years. And so I'm rolling around. I'm a little pissed off about the brats. So I look and I see your bag of salad, your standard bag of salad. And I see $1.99 for the bag of salad. But then I see under it $3.49. The $1.99 was only if you had their stupid app, which doesn't work. It's like app only pricing $1.99. And I'm like, I'm not paying this. Phil, I left my cart in the middle of the produce section, half full, walked my ass out, got in the car and called Nat and said, I'm just not having brats anymore.
It's over.
I'm not doing it. And you know what? I'm probably going to be healthier for skipping the brats and maybe having a lesser expensive meat like, I don't know, some ground chicken or something that'll go a little further. So that's my point about NIL overspending.
Right.
They're not going and spending $750 for bratwurst. And you may say, well, the market determines this. You can't look at sports like a real business. It's because it's not a real business. It's a make-believe. NIL especially is a make-believe business. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you also have to understand that, especially in football, there's so many players, and there's such little difference between this guy and that guy at the time you recruit them, because it's about talent maximization, that you can make on your own determination. You can set your own price for what you're willing to pay for brats and still survive. You're not going to die. In fact, you'll probably thrive because you're not overpaying for freaking bratwurst. Or if you want to go healthy, salad, lettuce, romaine lettuce. I'll go get a head of lettuce and chop the damn thing up myself. And it's just as good, probably more healthy and tasty. So that's what Beamer and his staff do. They just refuse to do the outrageous things. Yeah. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's no... there's nothing you can point to, right, that says, well, if you just go out there and overspend and just blow the wad on players, because of their, either star rating, popularity or whatever, the hairstyle, that's going to win, No, and I think that's one of the things that's missing in the Ohio State narrative this year is a bulk of those dollars, is my understanding, were for retention as opposed to acquisition this year.
100%. And, I'll just say South Carolina played their returning guys that they know they're comfortable with. They know they're ballers. They know they're good. They've evaluated them. They know the value. And I think that Beamer, even though it frustrates some fans who rightfully so get excited about recruiting, I love that. I'm happy that they're that excited about recruiting and die hard and all that, and that they share their opinions. But as much as it frustrates you because it's not exciting to retain players, it's more exciting to go get players.
Right.
The Beamer's got a track record of doing this, right? And I just mentioned the fact that the last two budgets, and then the budget before that in 2022. I mean, you're talking, this thing's more than quadrupled since 2022. And Carolina's got a much better roster, top to bottom, than they did then. But much of that is, like you said, at Ohio State. A lot of those guys were, I don't know, could have been 5th, 6th round draft picks, 7th round picks, and they came back. Ohio State made it worth their while. They had a caged animal off season, like Phil and I talk about. So that's football. And when I say it's in good shape, I'm talking about 2025, i.e. this past talent acquisition period the Gamecocks went through. I'm talking about retention. And if you notice, there's been some good players that have left, chased bags. There weren't very many this year at all that just left to get more money.
Right.
Were there? No. So that's solved, and that's half the problem. I mean, look at the other schools in the SEC. The outbound is insane. Now, Carolina did lose a lot of players, but it's to the NFL draft, declaring early, or it's just they're like 38 years old and it's time to go, man.
That's right.
Boogie Huntley and Tonga are like Van Wilder.
Like, look, you graduated 2 years ago, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, but you go and get them to come back, and look, hey, Clemson has a similar philosophy with NIL. They just now dipped into their toe into the portal a little bit. They're not as portal heavy as Carolina, but you're not going to get paid by Clemson unless they're comfortable with you.
Right.
And I think South Carolina does the same. A lot of winning programs do the same. Georgia does the same thing. And Ohio State essentially did the same thing. And then they went out, and what they did with their embarrassment of riches, which threw their athletic department into the red, allegedly by 20-30 million bucks, with all that Big Ten money. They went out and got the kid from Bama, the safety. They went out and got Judkins. And then they got the quarterback from Kansas State, who was probably a bargain. I don't think they had to pay him like some other schools were paying other players. And so that's the deal with that. So that's where, in starting this coming year, football's in good shape. But that is one bucket of the NIL collection buckets. That's if we have 4 dipping sauces, that's ranch. Or what's your favorite dipping sauce, Phil? Honey mustard, ranch, blue cheese?
Depends on what we're eating, Yeah, like a good blue cheese on a hot wing.
Okay.
Ranch. Let's go with ranch. We'll say
all right, so football is ranch.
Right.
So baseball, I got to come up with a good one here. Baseball is blue cheese. Because not everybody loves blue cheese, but those that do think it's delicious. And South Carolina Athletics is a buffalo wing joint, and you're going to go through a lot of blue cheese, and it's the chunky blue cheese, not the crap you get in the bottle that's all just basically sour ranch. So there's that bucket. Now that bucket has changed quite a bit. We used to do baseball with Carolina Rise. Mark Kingston got the Gamecocks to a super regional where I think we spent about $100,000 that year. Last year's team was maybe 190, 200. This year's team, different story. Because everything got pushed into when they passed the state law. The university helps it. I personally raised about $200,000 from different people for baseball, just because they knew me from there. I'm not bragging or anything. So that budget went way up in line with what the other schools in the SEC pay. And A&M paid a kid $600,000 last year for baseball. That's a lot. Now the cap's coming and their scholarships coming for that sport. So that's going to change. That's going to kind of be a little bit different. You're also fighting minor league contracts and things like that. So the days of crazy spending in baseball are probably going to come back to earth a little bit. You could justify a lot of it because they had to pay to go to school, and they still do, I think, until next year. But then once they're getting a scholarship, things like that, the dollars are probably going to come down with that sport with rev share. But then you could do NIL above it. So that's blue cheese, right? And so that bucket is way more full than it's ever been. And it is for this current roster because baseball is in the spring. And so you started everything over. And it's like, okay, well, here comes the baseball stuff and the state law and kind of a restructuring. All that passed last summer. So for baseball, there was time to get the new budget and all that stuff. So that's blue cheese. Women's basketball, honey mustard. It's so Eric, picture this. It's fine. Honey mustard's honey mustard. Dawn Staley has asked for funds. Joyce Edwards would not be there if it weren't for NIL because LSU offered her a bunch, and LSU's kind of an outlier. There's 1 or 2 people that give Kim Mulkey a beaucoup de cash. Yeah, and what I was told by a good source about women's basketball last spring was there's only really one program doing this in women's basketball, and that's LSU. Like UConn's not out there paying people out, Tennessee's not trying to wake up the echoes by paying just crazy, stupid money. That said, there's enough in that bucket for women's basketball here and elsewhere, Phil, to where they're making way more than they would in the NBA. Oh, and that's the one sport where, if you can make more money and stay in school, and college basketball in the women's game is much more popular than the WNBA, unless Caitlin Clark's playing. Hopefully it's not that way anymore. I don't really see it as any kind of gender issue or anything. I just think that some sports take time to grow in popularity. Now, here at South Carolina, the popularity of women's basketball is unquestioned. Whether or not that's most of our audience or a kind of a different fan base, which I think it is, it doesn't matter. It's the Garnet and Black. It's the Block C. It's Step to the Rear. It's Sandstorm. It's a gigantic crowd on national TV. That sport deserves all the support it gets. But what I'm telling you right now, because I see some really crazy stuff out there, women's basketball is taken away from the men and all that. It's not.
No.
Not at all. Not in NIL at all. So that brings us to McDonald's barbecue sauce. Thank you, Bruin.
That's right.
And that would be men's basketball. Now, when you're a fledgling NIL operation, and I'll be honest, I'll be straight with you. South Carolina South Carolina and a lot of other schools got behind in all this, right? And it took some time because the state law, they had to refile it twice and all this other stuff. Okay, so bottom line is this. So Lamont Paris, I said, and I've told you this before. They come in, Gigi Jackson comes. I was in on that. You know, he was a Carolina Rice kid. Trust me, man, that was tough, and it wasn't a whole lot of. I mean, it wasn't. You know, it was a bargain, honestly. At the end of the day, and you kind of had to keep paying it and stuff like that. But everybody got through it. I mean, Meechie Johnson didn't make anything. Zach Davis and those guys, they didn't make nothing. First year. Second year, I mean, some guys $750 a month, something like that.
Right.
You know, Colin Murray Boyles got up there eventually. But you're not talking, you know, you're not talking like seven figures. You're not talking for that NCAA tournament team they put together last year, Phil. You're not talking about even total seven figures.
Right.
For men's basketball. Okay, so they start everybody got behind it, raised money after the success, they raised enough, but you know, it got to be a little over seven figures. Meanwhile, Calipari meanwhile, their school's putting in 3 to 5 million on it. And because everything's happening all at once, right? It's a moving target and you have to prioritize. And the problem is when you're, you know, trying to raise NIL funds and, you know, now everything's kind of together, but when you're just a collective, it's hard to get folks that want to fork out money for men's basketball at the school. Only men's basketball. Most of them are football only, you know, as far as boosters and things like that. That's not the way it's going to be moving forward as far as boosters, because rev share and the school will determine a lot of it. But that's why the NIL budget for men's basketball is not as good or as positive for this season as football was, and then baseball, which is kind of based on the next season. And that's why I think that, you know, that's something you have to consider. So if there is an NIL, a big NIL need, and I hope and pray, my theory is, Phil, that this NIL thing is not going to continue to get out of control. Some people think it's just going to go on forever. And they're the same people that thought the blue bloods are just going to run away with it and blah, 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 blah. The transfer portal, they said the transfer portal. Well, this is just going to favor Clemson and Georgia and Alabama, and all the players are going to transfer there, and they're buying players anyway, and blah, 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 blah. But what programs has the transfer portal elevated in the SEC? Elevated. 3. Ole Miss, Missouri, and the Gamecocks of South Carolina. And I'd throw Vanderbilt in there too, because Pavia and the guys, I think that's more of a kill zone topic. But it's helped out the other schools. Go look at Georgia and Alabama's outbound transfer portal, folks. Next time somebody gets concerned about team recruiting rankings on a signing day from the high school, go look at and say, go point out the parade of 4 and 5 star guys that everybody was happy about on signing day. Oh God, I wish you could have gotten them, that are just like, see ya after 1 year because they're not playing. That's an issue at some of the bigger schools. I mean, the bigger name schools. And Phil, here's a surprise. Alabama, Georgia's NIL budget is about the same as South Carolina's, and in some cases less for football for right now.
Yeah. But there's any number of factors that people don't consider as to what a player will take to come to a certain school, right? Like maybe you're going to have to pay a top tier producing player more if you're a school that's a little under the radar, right? I mean, just because look at some of the exorbitant amounts of money that Ole Miss is putting out to get football players there, or at least started to when Kiffin started to become the portal king, right? Now he's kind of built up this cultish following and making the SIP, kind of a destination. So
last chance you.
Yeah, right. I mean, you get to go down there and maybe not pay as much. But I don't know. What do you think, though, JC, the impact of agencies being involved now is doing to the landscape?
Because it depends on who the agent is.
Right.
There's reputable agents out there. Right. They work for reputable companies, like I know some of them, they're good people. They have their client's best interest at heart, all that, but I'm getting to that here. I will have, let me do these follow-ups real quick. And then I'll talk about agents, because that's something that's changed as well as this thing's grown. Craig, I think what you're asking, why does it come out freely what Dylan Stewart and Sellers are making? Not questioning you, JC, you just wondered. I haven't seen anything accurate out there about what Sellers and Dylan Stewart are making. I think there's estimations, there's guesses, but nobody's really hit the exact dollar amount, nor the structure, nor anything. But to your point, Phil, you brought up agents. Most of the time, if that number's leaked, it's an agent doing it. And I don't think they're serving their client by doing that either. Not at this level. Not at this level. But it's going to come out, when we get to rev share, it's going to come out because of, transparency laws.
Yeah.
There'll be the state newspaper certainly will file an FOIA for all that information. And put it out and then write some narrative about how, I don't know, just write some stupid narrative. And that's what I'm not going to look forward to, is when people take those numbers and twist them and then relate that to performance.
Oh, because that's coming. It's here's what you're paying per sack for an edge rusher that you got in the offseason.
I guarantee you, Phil, someone will do this, whether it's in the media or not. They'll see that a freshman is getting paid X. Now, you should never overpay for freshmen.
No.
But it's getting paid pretty good money, probably more than we all make, right? And he doesn't play, or he struggles, and it's going to immediately be about that. And the people that bring this up publicly have not given a dime to anything and helped with anything.
They have zero
most
investment
of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, because the people that invest in it, they'll complain privately or question things private, but they're not going to. There's a reason they're in a position to help, right? So I think that's the thing. Bruin says, in my opinion, you pay your guys develop then and go spend top money on 3 or 4 top dudes at playmaking positions to take that next step, like Ohio State did with a few guys. Yes, if you can get them, because all right, so there was no Judkins. Carolina could have gotten none. Justice Haynes isn't even close to Quinshad Judkins. Judkins was probably the top 5 back in college football. Rocket Sanders was good. That's the type of guy you go for. So there's nobody at running back. Where does South Carolina have other needs? Receiver? I don't see a single receiver that is as good as what Ohio State did. I don't see a safety out there in the portal that's as good as what they did. I mean, you're talking about that kid that came from Alabama, Odom. I mean, he Phil, he was unbelievable as a true freshman at Alabama.
Yeah.
One of the best players in the country right away. There just wasn't that type of, if you're wondering why South Carolina didn't do that, that's it. And South Carolina, I think, got 13 really good players. I mean, this Uncle Ronquo kid, I keep hearing special things about him. But Bruin, I think you're right as far as keep your guys, keep your core intact, and then build around. Clemson, to a certain extent, did that. I don't think they went out and overpaid for anybody they got. But yeah, Jeremiah Alexander's a guy they kind of need, and then the DN from Purdue is a good player that they kind of needed, and then they got the big receiver from one of the directional Missouri schools. So I think you're right about a good way to do it if you keep your guys there and prioritize your guys there. Oh, catch-up packets. Craig says, I'll gladly take $750 a month as a college kid. Craiger?
Yeah, man.
They keep charging $750 for 5 bratwursts you want. And that's I had an epiphany at the grocery store, dude, because I've been, I'm okay. I don't, it sucks to spend a little more, but it's not, it's not something where I'm like, oh God, it's just now this costs this, and hopefully it doesn't last too long. But yesterday I was done. I'm just not doing this anymore.
Yeah, there's certain things like I've run into those too. You're in the grocery store because I do the grocery shop, behind the scenes at Mad Dog's house is like I do the grocery shopping every Sunday, right? And I go, I got my routine. I go to Aldi and then I fill in the gaps, elsewhere. And now there are certain things, JC, that I just insist on the brand, right? Like I'm not going to back off of this, and I don't drink very much of it these days, but soda is one of them. Like I am a Coca-Cola guy, and I will not refuse. I don't care if it's cheaper to buy generic when it comes to stuff like that. But yeah, you just run into stuff out there. You're like, there's no way. I'll just do without.
Yeah, that's why I guess I just won't be having delicious bratwurst. I think the sauerkraut. I'll just eat a big old bowl of kraut. How about that?
God.
But
good for your
yeah.
gut,
So Craig says saw an Instagram post. Yeah, there's just a lot of crap on Instagram, Craig.
Yeah.
These alleged news outlets and stuff. They just sit around and make posts all day.
Yeah, the per sources numbers.
So I don't know. Could be more, could be less. Not telling. If those were the numbers hypothetically, they're worth every penny.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody came out for $5 million, and I know, just, and sometimes numbers are thrown around for nefarious, bargaining reasons by agents and things like that. But we'll see what that. Julie, I'm gonna come back and read your WNBA post. I just don't agree that women's basketball is fundamentally sound anymore. I mean, part of the WNBA finals last year. Did you see that? I mean, I don't. It used to be. It is at times.
That was one of the draws for the women's game, though. She's right. Is like, it was more fundamentally sound. But now I don't pay enough attention to notice if there's a shift or not.
They a lot of times, and maybe I just watched the wrong games. I don't know. A lot of times they make the same stupid mistakes as the men do, but you don't have the moments of athletic brilliance to enjoy the rest of it. I loved watching Carolina play Iowa last year. I think there are times bricked layups and stuff in the past where the women's game here, even though they're winning, has not been exciting. But I agree with you. I just don't know that. I think the WNBA probably needs to pay more attention to that, what you said, and make your point. She said the South Carolina women are
South Carolina more so than the
absolutely.
Yeah. Of course.
Well, and I'll also say this: they win and they're fun to watch. And I mean, there was an athletics year here. Gosh, I don't remember which one it was. No, it was the nobody can score year. There's probably a funny name based on social clout in high school that we could call it. The Revenge of the Nerds year, the Lambda Lambda. What is
Lambda?
Lambda?
Yeah,
the Lambda year. But no, football could not score. Terrible offense. Basketball, I think Frank was the coach then, couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Women's team was kind of a grinded out, low percentage shooting team, which it was for a while. And then we get to baseball season. I think baseball won, but it was all pitching. There's like, if it wasn't,
you're winning games like 3-2.
6 runs was an explosion on offense. And I was like, why does every side? In basketball, it got so bad one year with both teams. It's like it was the same year, Phil. I thought literally they needed to go look at the rims at Colonial Life Arena and say, look, what is there a little tiny like half inch of paint on these things? Why?
Right, yeah, right.
But starting, I think around like last year, South Carolina, when Pow Pow came in and Full Wiley and those guard, I mean, they started, they're good at everything. They'll have a bad shooting night, but they're good at shooting from outside. They're good at inside. They're good at everything. And they're the best basketball program in the country on the women's side. So you're right. But I think that's interesting. Get me to get off on that, those things. But Bruin says at some point you got to trust your development of high school players, or you're going to start struggling in high school recruiting if you're just going out and playing mostly portal guys. Yeah. Case in point, the South Carolina defense this past year. Kyle Kennard was a big part of that defense. Demetrius Knight was a big part of that defense. Everybody else, and I know Debo Williams was a portal guy and Bam Martin Scott was a JUCO, but Debo didn't play it down at Delaware. They got him out of the portal. They're all what everybody's calling homegrown now.
Right.
I mean, everybody was a high school recruit. A lot of them were from South Carolina, Phil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that has been a winning recipe across all programs here.
I like that about what Beamer does, because there's some significant players they've gotten from the portal. Spencer Rattler, Rocket. If you'd have told me a couple, like in 2021, hey, Spencer Rattler and Rocket Sanders are going to play for the Gamecocks at some point, I'd have been like,
sure.
But hey, lo and behold, they are. But who are the big dogs? Who did we just mention paying?
Yeah,
Dylan Stewart, Lenore Sellers. Now Stewart was a big hyped guy out of high school, and is one of the guys that has lived up to it. Sellers did not command a gigantic NIL price tag when he came to school, but showed the country what he was worth, and he got it. And look, I'm not anti-paying players either. I think you need to pay guys what they're worth, and protect your culture and understand that it's a team sport. And it's going to get to the point if this rev share thing kicks in and there's not NIL on top of that with some schools. Unfortunately, Phil, college coaches are going to have to sit there and go, this guy can go get I like this guy as a player. He can go get $600,000 elsewhere, but I just really don't want to pay him that, because I have these 2 recruits that are, and this guy behind him is just as good, that doesn't want that much money. And then I can go get these 2 recruits or these 2 portal guys at other positions to help my team, and they only want $250 a piece.
Right.
And so we're gonna let Johnny go, and that's sad.
Yeah, you don't want to see that,
But
you're right. I mean, there's gonna be places. I mean, it already kind of has in certain places. It was like, I don't want to go, but they can't afford to keep me.
So, but I just wanted to point that out, that it's really a lot. The subjects are different. And I'll wrap it up, Phil, by saying this: I am not blaming NIL for the basketball team. Not at all.
No,
not at all. It's a series of unfortunate events, and NIL really has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Really nothing to do with it, because they knew the budget. Nobody complained about that at all when they were putting this roster together, because they put a better one together for less the previous year. That's not the reason the basketball team's struggling. It is, however, a potential solution for the program in general, whether you like Lamont Paris, don't like Lamont Paris. Don't care if you have 1 billion, what, 2 billion, what, 3 billion, what. Anyway, you ever seen Stone Cold E.T.? on
No.
YouTube?
Oh
my
check
God,
that out.
Phil. You got to do it during the break. Yeah, Julie says NIL has nothing to do with all these turnovers. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But,
right.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that's the situation they're in, because it's going to start coming up, guys. Jeremiah Donate, the new athletic editor, brought it up. He's kind of see about that. And so if you care about men's basketball, don't have to do anything now, but we're probably going to talk a lot about how everybody can help and get the word out, because a lot of it's getting the word out and get the NIL dollars, because Carolina's going to need between 5 and 7 million in NIL generation beyond the rev share.
Rev share.
That's what most schools are targeting. I haven't heard that number from South Carolina specifically, or Garnet, my guys at Garnet Trust. I'm just looking at what everybody else is doing. Yeah. You got to keep up with the Joneses, but that's way different than trying to build a $25 million a year enterprise to fund everything.
Oh my goodness.
Privately.
No. Right. Yeah.
All right, we'll go check out Stone Cold ET and Inside the Gamecocks The Show. Hour number 2, we'll come back. We'll talk about college football playoff fixes outlined by The Athletic. Is there a stupid list? Plus, Bret, I almost called him by the nickname that I can't repeat on the air. Big Bret Bielema.
Bret Bielema.
I have never seen a coach get this much mileage out of beating South Carolina. That is a sign, I think, maybe the Gamecocks have arrived. Inside the Gamecocks The Show, sponsored by Tony Pope State Farm. Rolling on after these messages.
The Aventon Adventure 2 takes the same basic design as the original Aventon Adventure, making it an adventure bike designed to take you places that typical roads just don't reach, allowing you to ride whatever terrain you want based on your whims of the day. Look at what you're getting. Hydraulic disc brakes, torque sensor for responsive pedal assist, great LED lighting, suspension, a beautifully welded frame with excellent build quality, included rear rack, included fenders. The list just keeps going on.
Visit electricbikescharleston.com for more.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Hey Gamecock Nation, my name is Kyle, longtime listener of the show and avid golfer. I wanted to take my game to the next level, but let's face it, golf is a hard game to learn on your own. I heard the ad from McKellar Enterprises and reached out to the owner and former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. In just 2 months of working with Meredith, I shot my lowest round ever, and I've never felt more confident in my golf game. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, go to McKellarEnterprises.org and book your lessons today with former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor. Go Gamecocks.
Think about that old ride of yours. The carpools, the road trips, the heavy hauls, date nights, and the dings and the dents and the sticky spills and cracker crumbs, and that smell that really never goes away. Do you really want to start the new year in the same old ride? Or is it time for a fresh start? Now's the time for incredible New Year's savings at Love Chevrolet on the entire lineup of award-winning vehicles. Love has more new Chevys on the lot than any other dealer in the Midlands, in the color, style, features you've been looking for. With New Year's savings and Love's famous low price guarantee, your new ride in 25 will be invigorating, exhilarating, and affordable too. South Carolina's #1 volume Chevy dealer, I-26 at Harbison, and online at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.
That's the power of love. Love Chevy.
When you bundle home and auto, good things can happen. You get a local agent who can help you choose the right coverage for you at a price that's right for you.
Call State Farm agent Tony Pope today.
Welcome back, everybody. It is hour 2 of Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Mad Dog Mullinax here, JC Shurburtt in with you, and having an interesting discussion about NIL. I did catch a little bit of that Stone Cold ET. I was not expecting that. When I
White
Googled
Castle.
it, I was like, oh, wow. Okay, at White Castle. That was the
Stone
other thing
cold
that
with
hit
a
me
little
about
burger
this
with a
video.
ketchup, a little pickle water right now. Could he give me a hell yeah? Oh, hell yeah.
What
This is
killed
Stone
me
Cold
was
ET.
how far he drove from the box to the window. It looked like it was down the road.
Yeah,
He's like, where the hell is this White Castle?
That's been around for a long time, kind of. It just came on me because it's a Stone Cold thing. Because I don't know, I kind of miss Stone Cold Steve Austin sometimes. I remember. I remember they had
our little one is starting to pick up the WWE. Like she likes to watch the Raw, or whatever.
Nice.
Like she's getting into it.
I can see Allie doing that.
Oh
I can see
yeah,
her
yeah.
getting
Allie
into that.
loves it.
That's awesome. Krager in the chat box says, can you imagine what Ashton Genty could have commanded if he had another year to transfer? Yeah, probably pretty penny, but probably not quarterback money. Colleges are a little bit more open to paying running backs than the NFL, but it's still like, I mean, most of the time colleges say you need to and go from there. Carolina actually didn't. Rocket Sanders made money, but he didn't, it's not what you think. Carolina got I'm not going to say bargain. They got their money's worth from that guy though, no matter what he was paid.
I wonder if the NIL dollars are kind of proportionate relative, obviously, to the scale of NFL free agent acquisitions. I know there's probably not enough data to really say yay or nay.
I can tell you specifically that some of it, like very generally, you kind of put, you can crunch NFL data with salaries and budget, and in the college game though, you've got 85 on a roster.
Right.
You only have 53 on NFL.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's almost twice as big. Yeah.
It's less big. And in the NFL, man, like what they do, because I dove into all of this, right? So yours truly. And I love stuff like this because it's kind of how we used to do, or the baseline for doing recruiting rankings is crunching position, because position value in football, it's hard because it's like, man, if you look at it, 1 year, you may have a quarterback that's the top quarterback and he's really good.
Right.
But, this dude that's the top center is the best center of all time. Right.
Yeah. But it's not going to command anywhere near.
And you're still, as long as it's just not like a donkey year at quarterback where there's nobody that's worth a toot, you're still going to rank the top quarterback about 50 spots higher than the top center. And you may sneak that center into the low 5-star range if you think he's good enough to be a first-round draft pick, but it's hard to project an offensive lineman position-wise, Phil, from college to the NFL. That your shorter, wider guys are usually going to be guards or centers. Most of your bigger guys that have length are going to be tackles, but that sometimes doesn't hold. Like they get to, you see it, offensive line will switch. You see it when they get to college. It's like, oh, well, no, you played tackle but you're a guard now. Or, you may have been a guard in high school, but you've grown 3 inches. Well, let's put you out of tackle, or you're good with your feet. And then you get to the NFL and it kind of goes back to it reverts sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you may have a guy that's about 6'6", 315 is a tackle in high school, right? And he comes to a program that's got good tackle, and he plays guard in college, and that's his best spot in college and whatever. So then he gets drafted in the NFL, second, third round. It's usually your second or third rounders. And he gets up there, and they're like, this guy can really move his feet. Maybe he's our right tackle. Maybe he's our backup right tackle, right? Because in the NFL, they cross-train offensive linemen. They only carry, I think, 8 in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
So you're cross-training O-lineman. Most of the time, a guard is a center and vice versa. So you may slide this guy out to tackle, and then, your starting tackle gets hurt. He goes in, and the starting tackle gets Wally pipped because this guy's really good at tackle. And so there you go. I mean, and that's the scenario that's happened. They move offensive linemen all the way around. I get shocked by it. Offensive linemen and sometimes defensive backs. So that's hard. But back to the position value thing, I have dug into it, and it is loosely based on that. You can't do it like the NFL does it, because what they do is their top guys, they pay through the roof, big contract, like their top 2 or 3, and the rest of them, they're trying to plug and play and win that way. And there's a cap and all this other stuff you have to be, and like I said, less players. In college, you can't have 1 or 2 guys running away with all the money. Because there's injuries, there's development that has to take place. You know, you're on a clock. You know, I mean, NFL, you want to play for a franchise for 10, 15 years? Great, unless they trade you. But here you got 4 or 5 years, and that's it. You don't have them that long. You got to keep them. You got to develop. So it's more spread out. But to answer your question, as far as, you know, budgetarily, now I don't know, you know, what formula Beamer and his staff and everybody kind of use, because their decisions are more based on individual. This guy, we're not doing this. This guy, we are, whatever. So I kind of don't know what critical factors they're considering or anything like that. I do agree with just about everything they've done, though. Because when I really think about it, when I'm really like, is this guy, you know, what? Nah, I probably probably wouldn't do that either, right? So that's the deal there. So I think that, you know, when you're in college, you can't just have 1 or 2 guys doing it, and you know, you spread it out a little more. Everybody's happy, that kind of thing. But, you know, in general, it is based on that. Like, as far as like you get up like a pot of, you know, $16 million, how do you divide that up? Well, you go, well, this guy QB, this guy, that guy. So anyway, Krager said sinners get Cabbage Patch Kids. That's hilarious. So I'm reading The Athletic today, which I give some of the college football media at large a hard time at times, because I generally don't like the way media has evolved. And I'm talking about the traditional media. I think the issues with social media, what alternative media, things like we do, are different issues. I have issues with that too. I've just got issues, Phil. Nah, but I give them a hard time just because sometimes it's just obvious what narrative they're pushing. So I read, I think it's Manny Navarro, Stuart Mandel, How to Fix the College Football Playoff. And Phil, I was actually excited and looking forward to reading the article.
Right.
And it was like one of those articles where it's like, here's the question, and then they both answer. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they disagree.
Yeah.
So,
I didn't like the format. That kind of threw me off at the beginning. Just to be honest.
Yeah, it was just kind of weird.
Right. Why don't you each write an article, and then, you know, it'll be half as long, easier reads, and we can get through it.
So here are 3 things I take exception with, and I didn't disagree with all of it.
Right.
I didn't disagree with all of it. I mean, it wasn't one of those. Well, you're supposed to rate all the articles on The Athletic. You got a smiley face, a frowny face, or a neutral face. And so I didn't rate it a frowny face, right? So I think it was, I don't know which one said it. I'm not calling anybody out by name, but a direct quote. Indiana and SMU making we knew there was going to be some not so good teams in it. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
The rest of the college football world and people with common sense didn't think that.
No, that's not what we were promised.
The top teams were going to get in, and that,
right.
you know, and it. So anyway, we knew this. No, you didn't. No, you wanted this to happen. You were openly rooting for this to happen.
Maybe they did.
I've seen your social media feeds, folks. You were pulling for this to happen because it was because of the story. I agree. Everybody loves a great story, right?
Right.
But let's not manufacture reality and to make that story. Go rent Hoosiers from Blockbuster. Because people that still believe you can do that are the same people who came up with this cockamamie philosophy of picking the playoff. They think there's a Blockbuster, and go rent Hoosiers with Gene Hackman.
Yes, great movie.
But if you want that, go watch that. Go watch something else. So anyway, so in Indiana, SMU didn't hurt anybody. Okay, so let me just throw the Gamecocks into this because sometimes I take them out of it. Let me throw the Gamecocks into this. So it did not hurt Ole Miss and South Carolina to not make the playoff. Do you realize what that would have meant for those two programs?
Right.
Do you realize that Ole Miss and South Carolina are just as big of underdogs on a yearly basis as freaking SMU and Indiana?
Right. Yeah.
Do people not realize that? I know it's Lane Kiffin. I know he's the portal king. I know they were good last year. But look at the history of Ole Miss football. I mean, do you not think that it hurt that program to not make it when they were deserving over those two teams? South Carolina was more deserving than SMU and Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So those two long-suffering programs, you think that hurt them to not get in? That's moronic.
Who have hardly sniffed their conference championships, but had a shot at this national relevance.
Yeah, it's like, well, hell, let's just throw Vandy in there next time because they're a good story. Didn't hurt anybody to put the kill zone in the playoffs. I think the kill zone may have beaten Penn State just because James Franklin has that kind of luck.
I know. I've tried to avoid a lot of that speculation. Like, well, if you'd have let him in, then more than likely the results would have been different. But they're,
that was a big question I had the other day because I think, and I'll take Carolina back out of it. I think South Carolina matched up with everybody they could have possibly played in the field except Ohio State. And I feel I actually said that in November, so I'm not front running here and going, well, Ohio State once we got, they were pretty good. Yeah. I never trashed Ohio State. I did say if they couldn't stop the run against Tennessee, they're going to be in trouble. Well, they did, and they weren't in trouble.
Right. And Carolina had one of the things that's extremely important for being able to successfully make a championship run, and that is a solid defense.
Yeah, and a quarterback that could
make, and then the other X factor, right?
But yeah, they were like, I'll do my daily Braveheart reference. They crushed Tennessee like a worm. Would you like to see him crush me like a worm? I can crush you. Amish? Anyway, but I'll take South Carolina back out of it. I'm sitting there thinking, how would I really feel about Ole Miss playing at Notre Dame? Pretty good for Ole Miss. I mean, I would have thought Notre Dame was an upset if Notre Dame won. Right. Hell, I think Ole Miss would have gone to Texas and beaten them.
Well, I'm pretty sure, at least in Notre Dame, I can confidently say, even as the road team, Vegas probably would have had them as the favorite.
I think so. I'm pretty sure too. And because it's a playoff game.
Right.
And not, let's just go show up and play at Florida. Or, let's go show up and play Kentucky. Because it's a playoff game, Ole Miss would have been dialed in. I don't know, man. Maybe Notre Dame still wins.
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be a whole lot more competitive than that garbage Indiana game, where you could clearly see Indiana was not a team that could physically match up. I mean,
no, didn't belong. Right. I mean, you could just look at the two teams and you're like, oh,
didn't hurt anybody.
Okay.
You didn't hurt anybody.
Nobody got hurt. No.
Well, let's put Wofford in next year. I'm from Spartanburg. Right. Let's put. I'm going to make. It's not going to hurt anybody to put Wofford in.
There should be an automatic bid for the Division II champion to get in that next year. Yeah, let's let Montana.
So I soundly reject that pile of garbage. Right. Then one of them goes, 12 is the perfect number. Really?
God, I know.
And you just, this is what drives me nuts. So in between the nobody got hurt and the 12 is the perfect number, which is not, in between that, there was a big screed about like, need to have at least through the quarters at home fields. And, they were such a spectacle. I was like, I agree they were a spectacle, but the game sucked.
Right. The environments were elite.
Spectacle.
The product was not.
Not elite. Not an elite product. Would have been more of a spectacle had Ole Miss been in South Bend, or had, Alabama or Carolina been in State College, in my opinion. Those are the games people want to see. Nobody wants to see SMU or Indiana. So there's that. Want to stay at 12. And then the reason for this was because of the reward to get to the bowls. The only here's another thing too about the bye games being a reward, and this is my next point. They're not.
No, right.
Here's a little secret. They're not.
Yeah, you don't need a huge sample size to see that didn't work.
Oh, it was bad. Now, administrators love it. That's why we need to get administrators out of the selection process, because this is what they think about. It's $8 million,
right?
Or however much they get paid.
Yeah, exactly.
That's millions more dollars. When you go straight into the quarters, you get millions of, and you don't have to have the headache of maybe having a home game or traveling and listening to your irate fans because the stupid playoff committee is only giving you 3,500 tickets to sell. And you know, I mean, if you're an administrator, hell yeah, you just want to go to the Fiesta Bowl. All those bowls are in warm weather for the most part.
Right.
Sometimes Dallas and Atlanta will get cold, but hey, who doesn't want to go to Phoenix for a week around Christmas? Of course, that's a reward. But you can ask most coaches. Here's a little secret: most coaches have expressed to me they'd rather play and not have all that time off, because you saw it in the 4-team playoff, Phil, and you saw it less because. And I'll use Clemson in 2017 as an example. Alabama was the national champ, but Clemson was on an absolute heater with Kelly Bryant at quarterback on both sides of the ball all of November. Like, they blew out Miami and blew out Carolina. They were rolling, you know. They had a good 4 or 5 game roll going. And they waited all that time to the Sugar Bowl. And here comes Alabama. And it's Alabama, and they're good. And they were just off, right? Now, when everybody has to take that much time off, then it's fun. Then it's even. You know, you've taken time off. I've taken time off. We don't really know how it's going to happen. I've had that conversation with them. Never mind. I can't go there. You've taken time off. We don't know how this is going to happen.
No.
All right, so put that analogy out of everybody's head. Because it's not applicable to what I'm about to say. Coaches would rather play, because you do get, like, between conference championships and the playoffs, you get 2 weeks. So it's like having an open date and then going and playing. That's plenty. And then you get another 10 days. It is no coincidence, Phil, besides and everybody wants to point to seeding, but I'll point to something else too. Every team that got the bye lost.
Yeah.
By double, and 3 of them lost by double digits. And Arizona State was on their way to getting blown out. And what happened in that game, Phil? They got behind because guess what? They were rusty.
Yeah.
Texas had played Clemson 10 days before. You know, they were in
a competitive game too. It wasn't even one of those blowouts. You know, right.
Even football, you're still like fresh. And a month is a long time. When every team was doing it, great. You know, I mean, you can't really blame South Carolina losing to Illinois on the layoff. You could probably point to things in the game that were a little sloppy and the layoff hurt. But the layoff hurt both teams. I mean, Michigan and Alabama, same way, because both teams had the layoff. And when you're in a playoff situation where you don't have to deal with opt-outs, stuff like that, if everybody's waiting 30 days, great. But if one team, you wait next year – when we don't have Boise State getting a bye, hopefully. And that makes me pull against every group of 5 team there is. The fact that they would give that team the number 3 seed.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, they weren't even the lowest of the bye week team.
I mean, you know, the SEC gets disrespected quite a bit by this committee, but the Big 12 did too. And my question then becomes, are you a bunch of snobbish people? Because there's 2 conferences full of snobs, and then there's 2 conferences full of normal people. and your side, so your preferential, there's no planet where the Big 12 wasn't a better league than the ACC. None.
Right. Not in this last season.
Nobody even talked about that. That was just like Tennessee going 10-2, and nobody talking about who did they play.
Right.
Nobody brought that up, including me, until afterwards. And I was like, hey, it's like I got tricked.
Well, what's funny is I enjoyed watching the Big 12 because I knew heading into the season it would be one of the more competitive conferences, right? The problem there was the records weren't pretty, right?
No
the
pretty
number
records,
one criteria,
right?
Yeah.
Hey,
no
of all
records.
the off-brand teams that made it into the playoffs, Arizona State made the best account of themselves as anybody.
Right.
Took Texas to overtime. Right? ASU. Anyway, so I just, so hopefully we don't have a situation like that, but you wait till next year. You watch the results of the teams that have the layoff versus the teams that don't. And the caveat in that I'll put a disclaimer is if a team is in one of the first round and they have like a catastrophic injury, in other words, like if, it didn't even help Georgia, and Georgia was tired by the end of that SEC championship game. And Kirby said they needed it. They were rusty as you know what.
Mm-hmm.
If the team has a bunch of injuries, something like that, then obviously playing that game hurt them. And I get that. But I think what'll happen, Phil, is we'll have a more condensed first round and quarterfinals, in my opinion. And then the semis will come New Year's Day, kind of like they used to be. Remember? In the
right. Yeah. You play, the Final Four, if you will, right at the turn of the year.
And that's one of the points I agreed with in the article. Is like, I need to change. The 20th just seemed a little too late.
Well, and the crazy thing, JC, is if they don't change it in 27, they're playing the championship on the 25th of January.
You're kidding.
No, it's even farther out. Ooh. Unless the structure changes.
Yeah.
Which is asinine. But it's got to, because that's 2 years out and the contract is over. I mean, we all know what happens in between now and then. But assuming that they get their way and can't get the 10+1 to agree, it could stay 12. And that would be the way it lined up, just the way the calendar falls.
Yeah, and I think they kind of got a little greedy with New Year's Day and wanting, all the quarterfinal games, and that was great.
Yeah,
in the bowls, and then there was some debate in the article about the bowls. One guy said, the bowls are kind of a safe space for the playoff because they've hosted games before, they're pros at it. You don't have to worry about is some school doing one thing one way. I mean, it's just kind of a turnkey, and campus games are a pain in the butt is what they said. And honestly, campus games, because not all campuses are in, places like Phoenix and Atlanta, honestly, that's it. I don't know if they want to keep the bowls as the quarters, that's fine. But the bowls need to kind of let go of, we got to be on New Year's. You're probably going to need to be before Christmas.
There's one bowl that obviously needs to get over itself because your time has passed. I get it. It's a beautiful venue and a beautiful spot of the country that has some of the best weather in the world, blah, blah, blah. That was perfectly more than relevant and the best argument you had 100 years ago. And it's not like that now. You got it.
And also, I'll add this, Phil. Okay, so they want their semifinal. We have to be New Year's Day at 4:00 every year. Okay, yeah. Well, then you're going to perpetually be. So there's two choices. You can you're always going to be the because I think the semis are going to end up going back to New Year's, and the championship game will be around the 10th-ish, which is acceptable.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to cram everything in before Christmas, but that's not my problem.
You can do it. You just have to be creative in the way you set it up, and you don't even have to be that creative. I can see it.
I think you got to go right into the first round after the conference championship games.
Yeah, boom. You just have to hit it.
You just have to get to it.
Yeah,
and then right before Christmas you play quarters, and then you break for Christmas and you come back and you play the semis, or however it works. So, but here's what I tell the Rose Bowl. All right, so you always want to be the semis, right? You're going to pay us $25 million over the course of 5 years or more for the right for us to have our event in that place, which is beautiful. But you obviously have collected, get the state of California involved. They obviously tax the crap out of everybody out there. They have money. You're going to pay us and you're going to make it worthwhile. And we're going to have like 100 different stipulations on how much hotels can be, travel packages you have to make available, because it's very inconvenient for everybody to get out there.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's not the destination it once was around the greater Los Angeles area. I used to love going to LA. Loved it. Understand completely why people like to live there. It's beautiful. Now, not so much. So if that's what you want, you can do it. Otherwise, you can go be the Citrus Bowl and take, we'll even have in Mike Morgan and JC Shurburtt's bowl draft, which we're adopting. We're going to let you have second pick behind the Citrus Bowl.
That's right.
Why can't we have the first pick? Because you're going to take a Big Ten team anyway. And maybe whoever else was in the Pac-12. Take anybody you want.
Yep.
And you can play your little game and have your little parade and all that. But, you're the granddaddy of them all. But it may be time to go put you on out to pasture.
Yeah. I mean, if you're associated with college football in this day and age where tradition matters not, then how can you stand on tradition matters here?
And Phil, that's a bad tradition. That tradition held number one, it was a monopoly.
Right. Yeah. It was a stranglehold on.
Back in the 30s, Alabama played, everybody could go to the Rose Bowl, right? But it became a monopoly until the BCS. Dude, that's like 90 freaking, let me back up. From the 30s to 1998, it's like 68 years. Those evil people, those snobs, those charlatans, just because of their pretty backdrop and their big stadium. And I agree. I love it. I love the Rose Bowl. I get fired up as far as the game goes.
It's great. It's one of my bucket list stadiums where I'd love to see. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
My buddy's a Georgia fan, and in 2017, they played a game at Notre Dame Stadium in the regular season. And then they go to the playoff, and they're in the Rose Bowl against Oklahoma. So they got to go to the Rose Bowl game. And then, good for his pocketbook and everything else, national championship game in Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta.
Oh, that's good.
That was the year to be a dog fan. That was the year, man. I mean, oh, wow, South Carolina did something like that. I'd be broke, but I'd make it happen.
Well, that was one of the things, going back to the article, JC, that was actually, kind of an acknowledgement of how much resources fans have to expend in this current era.
Yeah.
And that he was like, well, I get to go to the bowl games for free, but I don't have to pay thousands of dollars, to take my whole family. Yeah. And that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a lot of folks this year for Notre Dame and Ohio State, which are the larger your fan base is, the more rich people you have. Right.
Well, yeah. And the more people are going to be willing to pay in the secondary market for these tickets.
Yeah.
Which is going to price your average fan right out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely. But I think this, Phil, that situation is not sustainable if you want people to show up. And even even some of the game, like the quarterfinal games, the tickets, like the semis, the Orange Bowl and Cotton Bowl. Cotton Bowl had a little weather, but tickets were cheap. Yeah, and then Penn State's home game, because they were playing, the Ponies.
Yeah, wasn't it like $7-8 to get in? Yeah, right.
Because nobody, you know what? They're going to beat the crap out of SMU. Correct.
Yeah.
I'll spend my money and go to Phoenix where it's warm. Correct. I mean, yeah, it's garbage. But that's another factor. But yeah, the Rose Bowl, to me, I'm putting an ultimatum on it. Like, if you want to be the special privileges, Grandpa, and just like you ruined college football for 60 years, we're still kissing your butt a little bit. I don't know. I'd love to find out why and who's on. I'm going to do some research to find out who's on the Rose Bowl committee and see if I can get better.
I get so angry digging into football committees.
Yeah, God almighty. But then you're either going to pay us all and make it worth everybody's while to trounce our butts out there if you're going to get a semi every year and then the rotates, or you can be the Citrus Bowl and have your game, and I'm sure ESPN will televise it like they do the Bahamas Bowl. And you want to act like the Bahamas Bowl, you get Bahamas Bowl money. So anyway, I know we got to get to a break. Then they mentioned multiple auto bursts for the Big 12 and ACC. And, they were like, we're not fans of auto bursts, but that may be a way to guarantee the Big 12 and ACC get more than one. I'm like, why are we shooting for that? If they deserve it, I have no problem with it.
Right.
Quite frankly, I could have made a better case for a number of Big 12 teams over SMU and really Indiana, if you want to get back to it.
I mean, as much as I crap on the U, maybe more deserving. I mean, at the end of the day, it probably would have been a more competitive game than what SMU played.
No doubt. Krager in the Nana Sports chat box brings up a good point about how much Alabama fans have spent the last 10 or 12 years in postseason travel. And that's going to kind of lead into our next topic to bring it back to the Gamecocks. The game in Atlanta, neutral site games, because this is interesting. You brought that up because, yes, Alabama's crowd that year, they did play Georgia for the title at Mercedes-Benz. I was at the 2012 SEC championship game. It was about 60-40 dogs. A lot of Alabama people because it's just right there. That championship game for the national championship, 75-25. They just weren't, and that was a big, expensive ticket too. So there we go with that. And so that leads us into a point about Alabama and neutral site games. And then the Gamecocks, who open at Mercedes-Benz this year. I've seen a lot of takes, Phil, about this game. Want to see what the chat box thinks. Want to get the pulse of the Gamecock Nation. And then I'll tell you what I think. And we'll be back after these messages. It's Inside the Gamecocks, the show. That was a stupid fake voice I just did. Anyway, we're built by the Barn Dough Co. Also, Right to Bear, righttobear.com. Perry Orth, check him out. And Gamecock Traditions has some really fly Gamecock baseball hoodie-like things I saw today. I'm going to get me one.
Yeah, the hooded shirts or whatever. Those. I like that. Yeah.
So be sure to support our friends at Gamecock Traditions, proud sponsors of the show. We'll be right back to wrap things up here on a Thursday. JC and the Mad Dog, Inside the Gamecocks The Show.
We got started in 1979. Because we're a manufacturer, we're able to control our costs. That's why we like to manufacture as much of the product as we can, because in our factory stores we can offer a competitive edge over other people around the country. When people come into one of our Palm Casuals, it's like they're buying their car at Detroit. They're going right to the factory and buying their car.
30-day money-back guarantee. That's a big deal with us. I mean, we give 30 days to do anything. I mean, return it, change it, get a different color, get your money back.
When you pull into a store and it says Palm Casual, you know you're at a factory store.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
What Right to Bear is we're an association of members across the entire country, and what we offer is we offer legal defense in the event of a self-defense case.
Nice.
So it's not insurance. So we offer an attorney in the event that one of our members might have some type of an accident. ProtectWithBear.com. We've got all of our social media accounts on the bottom of our website. We've got blogs, articles, detailed description of all of the coverages in depth, and we'd love to have you come check us out and ultimately get the protection you need.
Welcome back, everybody, inside the Gamecocks, the show. rolling on here on a Thirsty Thursday, final segment of the show. Well, we got an interesting topic of conversation here. Like,
yes,
there's a couple of different ways of looking at this, right? Like, you're making the trip, there's the expenditure of doing that to a neutral site game. The other side of it is, you know, do you need to play a game like that anymore? Like, strength of schedule obviously doesn't make any difference these days. So what's the advantage of risking losing a game to a team that you may ultimately end up being better than?
And that's kind of the point some people were making, Phil, after this season. That and there are some people, it's always extreme, and it's always somebody else's job, right?
Yeah.
It's always like, this athletic director needs to wave a Magic One Beamer, and that it's always coaches, right? Too. Beamer just needs to get out of it. They need to cancel it and schedule Towson State. Well, first and foremost, it's the committee pulled their shenanigans in November. You're less than 10 months out from playing the game. The contract signed. Tickets have been, I mean, you just can't, unless it's something like when the SEC came in and even that was a couple of years down the road and said, well, Georgia's supposed to play Oklahoma. Let's put that off because Oklahoma's joining the league. I mean, you can't just pull out, right? And football schedules aren't like basketball schedules and baseball schedules. Football schedules are made years in advance,
Yeah, right.
Like that road game Beamer coached at East Carolina was part of a contract signed when Spurrier and Eric Hyman were here. And the quote on the release was, looking forward to playing East Carolina and Skip Holtz. And you're like, so Beamer first year gets his 2021 and they're finally playing that game at East Carolina.
Well, they're still kicking a game down the road from
the App State
that
road
era.
game.
Right, exactly.
That will never happen.
No, nor should it. Of course not. Oh, I don't know. Now there's some intrigue with Dowell Loggins being up there, but you'd want to do that early.
He'll be gone by then. By the time this game's not even, I guarantee you, they'll get to a point they'll just buy out of it. So anyway, so my question is, there's a lot of people that were mad about the playoff committee, mad about scheduling, and they have a little not fatigue, but bad taste in their mouth about the North Carolina loss. Why should you risk it? Risky. And to that, I'll say this first and foremost. There were no non-conference losses that knocked Bama, Carolina, or Ole Miss out of the playoff. That didn't happen. Number two, I think this playoff committee was so egregiously bad, and it was the first year, and there were enough people, the right people, that were just put off by it and upset with it at the just lack of even considering strength of schedule. I don't see this happen. Maybe one more year when the 12 team. Yeah. But when the Big Ten and SEC take control of it, they're going to fix that. They're not going to leave it in the hands of morons. Okay. And because here's the problem is that, and Clint mentioned this, Alabama fans spending money on travel. And I'll get to that. But here's the problem in the SEC in general. All these schools have started when they were like, hey, wink, wink, nod, nod. We're going to expand the playoff. It's coming. You guys should start scheduling up a little bit. Okay. And what great programs like Alabama and Georgia would have been to them was, well, we'll just roll home and home with Notre Dame. And because, all these games, like big matchups with big teams, a lot of times it's the big teams, they won't play you. Like South Carolina, if they wanted to go and schedule a home and home with Ohio State would be like, how about no? Because what good does it do if they lose to South Carolina? And I'm talking about South Carolina in its, historical place. Then that's going to cause all kinds of problems. It already in a bowl game got a coach fired.
Right.
And if they win, what does that really do for them? And I'm talking you're 6-6, not the team last year. You're 6-6 South Carolina, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at it through the same prism as baseball. Like, I mean, Coach Holbrook has said it time again. He was like, well, why don't you play the teams in South Carolina? They're like, well, it's not for a lack of trying. You know, it's
no doubt. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of this is the teams going, nah, we don't,
we're good. We're good.
So that happens in this situation. But when they said they were going to expand the playoff, all of a sudden they're thinking, well, gosh, let's go challenge ourselves, get a big payday, get that national stage, big game. Everybody's excited. Our fans will be happy. And then if we lose it, who cares? Because we can always make it back up and make the 12-team field and win in the playoff. That's obviously not how everybody else, the pretty record brigade, sees it. But this is just 1 year, and that's my point. I think what they'll do is give it a go next year. And if you get the same stuff, there will be massive systemic changes.
Yeah.
If it's the same crap, they're going to change it. Whether that's making your own playoff committee, whether that's putting computers in it, whether that's, canceling all these future games. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what games do get canceled if it comes to that. The reason they started scheduling up too is to Craig's point, Alabama fans. Alabama for a long time played neutral site openers to where it got ridiculous. They played Dallas, they played Atlanta a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
They played one in Orlando against Louisville. When it got to the year that they played Duke in Atlanta, the Alabama fans went ballistic because it was that year. And this is another reason why I think they don't have divisions anymore. It was one of those years where I think so when Auburn is at home in Tuscaloosa, LSU is on the road. It was one of those years LSU was really good, right? Auburn wasn't that good. And Alabama's home schedule, Phil, was atrocious.
Right. Yeah.
I think Arkansas was the best team they played because Auburn was down. So, yeah, we got the Iron Bowl. That's a big and their fans were like, and you understand this because when you have a home game, all the season ticket holders come, the students come, everybody tailgates. Neutral site games, you're going, and you're like, why are we playing Duke on a neutral field?
I know.
I mean, it made no sense for Alabama. And so they stopped doing it. So these neutral site games and all that. I think South Carolina fans sort of feel the same way about playing in Charlotte, although the last one was the best one as far as crowds go. I mean, that was a big crowd in Charlotte, the biggest crowd they brought.
Similar to a home game, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Biggest crowd they brought to Charlotte. But I get it. Because it's not like Williams-Brice and home games are special for fans. And so for the crowd that wants to cancel it right now, that was never going to happen. And then there's also everybody needs more money, right? Revenue. These neutral site games pay well. That's number two. And then number three, let's just be honest here. South Carolina, I mean, would have loved. I mean, all those years they took Alabama and played whoever, and it got stale. I mean, and I've got a lot of different opinions about what essentially is the Peach Bowl committee that puts this on. I don't think there's a lot of love for the Gamecocks in that room. A lot of love for everybody else under the sun, not the Gamecocks. I mean, you're in Atlanta and you've only been invited to the Peach Bowl win twice. And both those years they had to take you because you won the ACC 1 year in '69. The next year you won the SEC East.
Yeah.
They had to take you.
Yeah, you were forced into
Agree.
it.
Yeah. They're ridiculous. But finally, Ray Tanner got it done. And Virginia Tech's a good matchup. All that good stuff. And you get it on the schedule after years of trying to get into it. And it's great exposure on the opening weekend of college football. Unfortunately, Notre Dame and Miami, the stupid ACC, they're playing that Sunday night. So it's not the only game that day, but it's going to have its own spot. Lenore Sellers, and plus Atlanta, playing in Atlanta is different than playing in Charlotte. Atlanta essentially, Mike Morgan says it, is the mecca of college football. So, that's the deal. So, you recruit there. There's thousands of alums there. It's Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is where you want to get back to. I just think it's a different level. it's a different level money wise too, with what you get paid, and then the exposure window. You know, you want to do it this year, never do it again. You want to cancel the Miami series if it's going to be about pretty records. That's fine. I'm not attached to NC State or North Carolina home and homes, or even the one with the Hokies in the 2030s. God willing, and the creek don't rise, I'll still be here.
Right.
But this one, you just were never going to cancel it. That's my opinion on it. I also think for the thousands of alums in Atlanta, and there are many, it's good to have the Gamecocks in town. It's an easy drive for most people to get to. It's an easy flight for most people to get to. You got that whole Saturday, Labor Day weekend to chill and watch Clemson and LSU or whoever else, go to concerts, whatever, hang out with the Gamecocks. I mean, I just think the good far outweighs the bad, even if Carolina loses, you know, because number one, they're not really, unless Virginia Tech's secretly really good, which they could be, who knows?
Right.
I doubt it. You should win the game. You shouldn't be afraid to go play games like that. But also, you know, I see the point of, if it's going to be like this, and no matter who you play, 11-1 always beats 10-2, then there's no reason to. You already play Clemson. There's no reason to risk it.
Yeah.
So you kind of go to a Kentucky style thing, and the only reason these schools started scheduling up, guys, is because of y'all. And when I say y'all, I'm not just talking about Gamecock fans. I'm talking about fans, because Alabama people in particular were like, we never have any big home games unless, you know, because you only have one Eastern opponent rotating. So unless it's Georgia, you know, we play Tennessee every year. They're down, you know, that kind of thing. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I'm in favor of playing in this Atlanta game. I think it's going to be big for the program. I've never been against it, but there's some people that don't think that the absolute right move was for Donate or Tanner, whoever. Beamer, I guess he can cancel games, right? He's a magician.
According to the fan base, yeah. Right. Well, some, not all, obviously.
Yeah. So, you know, that they should have just canceled it right away and, you know, scheduled, you know, Dog Breath U or whatever. And another thing people don't understand either, Dog Breath U is booked up.
Yeah, exactly.
Those little schools that take L's, they're popular.
Yeah.
I mean,
they love those paydays.
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of these future schedules for these not so good, because, you know, nobody's really anxious to go out and schedule like Memphis.
No.
Or Navy, although Eric Hyman scheduled Navy one year. What ridiculous. Hey, let's have a home game with Navy and then go to UCF in 2 years later at UCF.
At UCF, right.
Great. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But you think about it, I mean, how many games does Furman play? I don't know. Oh, against Power 4. What happened to JC? I don't know. Let me see if I can't fix that. No. It says you have.
Hey, I'm back.
And you're back. You're back.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know. You're on a different mic, though.
Dog Breath U. Am I on a different mic?
You are on a different mic.
It's a different mic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I dated a guy from Dog Breath.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back. You're back. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my take on it. I'm not, you know, and that's kind of why all this unfolds. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to get those little schools to come play. You kind of look and, yeah, like I said, nobody wants to play Tulane or Memphis or
that's right.
Yeah. They're looking at like, who's terrible? Southern Miss.
Right.
But you got to be careful scheduling Southern Miss because they have been good before, you know, and so you have to it's kind of funny. You have to make the calculated decision. Are they going to be perpetually down?
Yeah. Oh, and here's the thing. I mean, especially in an opener like that is, you know, you coaching these little schools up to be like, hey, y'all, you have the opportunity right now to be the next App State, right? Like you can make
everybody says
an impact. Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's the standard speech, and
then
it's like, well,
they don't know they're bad mentally yet.
It's like the Sixth Sense. I see bad teams.
I see bad.
They're walking around beating their chest. They don't know they suck.
That's right. Yeah, listen, you're invincible until you know you're not.
Yeah, everybody's got a plan. All right, so I got some we'll catch up with the Nana Sports chat box really quick. Queen of the Cocks rolling into the Nana Sports chat box. By the way, Matt has his request for the Atlanta opener in through the Gamecock Club. I think Phil kind of certainly won't be using the same source I used for the Charlotte game a couple years ago for all of us, but I think I'm gonna hit the secondary market for all of us on that, unless somebody's got like 8. These are going to be expensive, though.
That's right. Yeah, these are. Yeah,
they're going to be a little more expensive.
The
Charlotte ones were overpriced. These are just going to be expensive.
Yeah.
So Queen of the Cocks rolled in. What's the word on Contavious Anderson? I thought he committed to us. Yeah, people are talking. He keeps talking about all his offers and stuff like that. That's kind of normal. I don't. The kid they dropped, Colton or whatever, he was committed and doing something else. I don't want people to start thinking that, players targeting, or they're out there tweeting about other schools. That's a bad thing. But no, he hadn't committed. I think Clint said, you're probably thinking of Jazavian Currents from South Point. He's committed. Anderson's from Dorman, and the Gamecocks are recruiting him strong. He's one of 3 with Watkins from Northwestern. Yeah, Watkins from Northwestern, Anderson, and Currents, who's already committed. The Queen of the Cocks, TJ and Kyle, both opting out of practice today and the game. I don't know, probably an injury, probably good reason. Don't want to get hurt.
Either that, or maybe they've heard enough and seen enough. Like, hey, listen, y'all just chill. We'll see you at the combine.
Queen says, I'm guessing their stocks have risen enough. They've heard good things from GMs and don't want to risk anything. How common is it that they don't? I just don't know.
Mike was talking about this on the morning show. He said, this is the newest trend, right? Is to now participate in all of the practice and drills and then opt out of the games at the all-star game level. I don't know. But according to Mike, that's a new trend regarding the all-star.
That's fine with me, because I could care less about watching the Senior Bowl.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't think I've ever watched
it. Now, high school all-star games, I'd say, how about no?
Yeah.
You're not coming to Orlando or San Antonio on my dime and practicing and then opting out of the game.
Yeah, no,
this is ridiculous, but whatever. It's fine. How important is the actual game? I don't know. If scouts seen enough, who knows? TJ went off after a rep, according to Bobby. Said he would be fine. I don't care. TJ Sanders actually played in the Citrus Bowl. So I don't have a problem with him not playing in the Senior Bowl. I'll tell you this, Kyle, I think he's just trying to stay as healthy as possible, like I said, because it's a very competitive situation at edge. In most years, he'd probably be a no-brainer first rounder, but there's just a lot of pass rushers.
No, but yeah, it's like he's like the 6th one in line, right?
Yeah.
And he's still going to be. I doubt he drops to the 3rd round, but it might be hard for him to crack the first. Yeah.
Queen of the Cocks says Virginia Tech game scares. I don't know. Bobby wants to go to the Claremont Lounge at an after party. Tiffany dated a guy from Dog Breath U. Queen of the Cocks drive to Columbia, Missouri for that game. Then it's the Boonies. I may make that trip down because it's only 6 hours from here. And if
Columbia?
Columbia, Macomo. It's in September, so I can get up super early on Saturday, and you get to St. Louis, and it's an hour and 15 or so on the other side.
Yeah.
So if I get up super early, the game's like 4:30-ish, 4 o'clock-ish. Be a nice little trip. Gamecock Club, 110 to 215 each. That's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, Clemson, he thought Clemson is all over Anderson, and he thought he committed. Clint says might as well not even have the Senior Bowl game. Agreed.
Yeah.
Do it, JC. We'll have a mini ITG tailgate in Como. We'll see. We'll see if I can make it down. I got to find you have to find a hotel and stuff. That's a small place. I think last time I looked into going, Phil, there was like this lodge, like a wilderness lodge,
Like a
in the wilderness. And it was about 20 miles from campus, but it was nice.
Is that still the Ozarks out there? Is that where? Is that what it is?
Well, I know if you go south a little ways from there, you're going to be in the Ozarks. But it's okay. I think it's a good 2 hours from like Branson, which is the most boring, fun place I've ever been.
I've never been, and I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me.
All right, so take Vegas and take all the fun out of it, and take Gatlinburg and take all the fun out of it, and Myrtle Beach and whatever fun's left in Myrtle these days, and then have all of them, do it and have a freaky baby with no fun, and it's Branson, Missouri. That's enough.
Yeah, we need to call it.
We'll have the TGI Friday edition of Inside the Gamecocks The Show tomorrow to wrap the week up. Be sure to check out Inside the Gamecocks The Morning Show tomorrow. There's a really good episode of the Late Night Gamecock Show with the Late Night Gamecock, Matt Anderson, and Alex Pride of Hampton County Jones. It's up on our YouTube page. Check that out. I addressed the Mike Shula thing on coffee this morning, by the way. Remember
we were teasing the Shula, and I saw what it looked like.
I was like, I feel like just talking about this right here because I needed to give it a good 30 minutes, and I did. So be sure to check out Coffee with JC Shurburtt and get a podcast, YouTube, whenever. Download the Chief Sports app, and we'll see you tomorrow. Phil, the Mad Dog Mullinax, and myself. I'll be back with another coffee in the morning, and then we'll have the show to send you into the weekend in style right here on ITG The Show. Holla at you soon.